Welcome to the 80-20 Baseball Podcast. Strike! The 80-20 Coaching Masterclass, our weekly get-together where coaches go from new to good and good to great. Mastering the fundamentals and the art of coaching.
Welcome everyone, Coach Bo here with you. Pumped up to be here as always, our weekly get together here at the 80-20 Baseball Podcast. Got a big announcement I'll get to in just a second. But first, in today's episode, we have Coach Dexter Pendergraft back for part 2 of our interview. He's teaching us how to get our players faster, how to increase their speed. Not only that, today he's going to talk about conditioning. He's going to give his favorite 5-minute conditioning drill, and he explains the logic behind it, and he dives a little deeper into speed and strength training. So part 2 of Coach Pendergraft's interview. 2 things. Big shout out to all the coaches that are buying the coaching plan at 80-20 Baseball right there on the homepage. The feedback has been awesome. And last week, I built something to share with all of you. I built a pitching accuracy app that you can get. There's no subscription. It's a one-time $9.99. It's called Pitcher Score. It's one of a kind. It gamifies accuracy. It allows you to quickly not only have a pitch count, a pitch counter, ball strike percentage, but more importantly, it has dynamic scoring. I've taken the batting averages and slugging percentages of certain areas of the strike zone and areas outside of the strike zone. And I first started doing this about 15 years ago, breaking down the process, but now it's in an app form. You could be using it in minutes after the download. There's a standard version for your younger pitchers that are really just trying to pound the strike zone. And then there's the advanced version. Put a lot of thought into this app. It's the app I've always wanted to gamify pitching accuracy, to really quantify it dynamically, because not all strikes are the same, not all balls are the same. And this gives a much more accurate point value out of 100, so you can gamify bullpens, increase focus with your pitchers, make it more fun, and they get an accuracy score at the end of every bullpen. So it's called Pitcher Score. You'll see my name, Bo Asherbranner, there. For some reason, 80-20 Baseball didn't make it on there, but hey, it's the first app. The app turned out really nice, but I think I need to update the description of the app, but you'll see it there. Just launched Pitcher Score. I know what coaches need when they get out there in the trenches. So shout out to all the coaches getting the 80-20 Baseball coaching plan. There's another awesome resource available, Pitcher Score, on the Apple App Store right now, soon to be on the Google Play Store, and the Hitter Score app will be coming out very soon. These are one of a kind. There's nothing like these out there. Built from start to finish by somebody who played professional baseball, somebody who played high-level college baseball, somebody who's coached all the levels for years and years, and it's a one-time, you buy it, you get it. Same with the coaching plan. Real quick, before we dive into part 2 of our interview, I read this from UCLA's basketball coach, their women's basketball coach. They rolled South Carolina a few weeks back by 28 points. Third largest margin of victory in the women's national championship game. They essentially won the Natty by 30 points, which is super impressive to say the least. And here's what Coach Corey Close, the UCLA coach, said. Banners hang in gyms and rings collect dust, but who you become and who you impact, you get to keep forever. I definitely don't catch much women's basketball, but that quote caught my attention, caught my eye. Banners hang in gyms and rings collect dust, but who you become and who you impact, you get to keep that forever. And as coaches, who we impact, we get to take that with us forever. Definitely something amazing to hang our hat on at the end of the day, being a coach. All right, let's get into part 2 of our interview with Coach Dexter Pendergraft.
Coaches, listen, coaches. I mean, this is so dumb, and so not so dumb, so simple. But do a quick warm-up, do Bo's warm-up with the athleticism, all of that, and then let them play. I got a lot of tag games I can show you. Let them play tag for 5 minutes. I mean, seriously, they will, first off, they'll enjoy themselves, and they'll be ready to start practice on a high energy level. But number 2, they're going to be figuring out how to get into positions and out of positions and use their body in different ways that you can't coach. It's not possible.
You know what? I really like how you're presenting this to the listeners, and you're taking these advanced concepts and these great results you're getting, but it's tight. And I love your idea of playing tag and just a fun 5-minute game of tag too to get them moving, not just faster because nobody wants to get tagged. They're going to do anything they can, but also the movements that tag puts the kids through. It's just a lot of weird twists
And
turns.
you talk about, don't get me on the rant, conditioning. I know this is not part of our questions here, but coaches, the conditioning aspect that we know from growing up should not exist in your program. I mean, I'm just going to say it that simply. We're doing kids a disservice if we're grinding them into the ground. And I am one of the hardest workers. I love to work hard. But when we talk about speed, specifically, when we're talking about speed, you will not see results if you're out there running 20 poles after practice. You will never see, no matter what you do, because you're just going to beat their bodies down. And if you think that's conditioning them for what they're going to be doing in a game, let's think about this for a minute. So if I play tag and I blow a whistle for 30 seconds and I say, this kid's it. If you get tagged, you're also it. Some of my kids, they called it infected. So if you get tagged, then you are also it. Now, you've got two taggers. They both go tag somebody. Those two people are it. So now you start getting your whole team. You got a team of 13 kids. It's going to pile up pretty quick. And if you put a timer on for 30 seconds, they'll go hard as they can for 30 seconds and they'll get after it. And then you say, okay, we're going to stop. We're going to rest. And you just put a timer for 5 minutes total. And then you rest for 45 seconds or so to get them back to fully rested. You can play 4 rounds of that within 5 minutes. And that is better conditioning than you could ever get out of running poles or doing any kind of long grinding conditioning work, because it's short, it's quick. They're having to stop, start, change directions, accelerate. The neurological things that are happening in their brain, they're having to look and think about reacting to situations that are happening. That's what conditioning should look like.
And I would like to point out that something like that doesn't just benefit base running or an outfielder chasing down a fly ball. So in baseball, I think sometimes we think speed is base running, home to first, and base running, and then maybe outfielders. But when you do something like that game just described by Coach Pendergraft there, you are actually helping them as a hitter, as a
Yep.
pitcher, because of the movements and the strength. They're going to be rotating. If you ever watch a game of tag, kids are spinning and rotating and planting and lunging and doing all the things they're going to be doing at the plate, on the mound, playing shortstop.
I could have the best drills, but that is where it's going to take me 40 minutes to get all of those positions and all of those movements in. That's not going to work. So why not set up a drill that does all of that for me, that I don't even have to really say anything? I mean, the sheer strength that they're gaining every time. When you decelerate, anytime you have to decelerate your body, it's 10 times the force of your body weight. So think about that compared to a max squat for a high school kid. You can't compare it. Every time they're stopping and having to stop and get away from a tagger, that's like a max squat with a heavy back squat on steroids. Very specific to what it is that they're going to be doing in a game situation.
The next question I had lined up or on deck here was, can we as youth baseball coaches or youth coaches, can we fit in speed training in 10 to 15 minutes? But you just answered that a couple times over there. And not only can you fit it in, you actually got it down to 5 minutes. So I know I'm going to add all of your contact info and how coaches and organizations, people listening, that they can find you, because I know you got a lot of good resources. It sounds like we kind of covered that question.
Yeah, it sounds like something that's in your program is already on the right track. Only thing I would maybe even, for you or anybody listening, only thing I would maybe add to it is at the end, some kind of maybe one day one, you're timing a 10-yard dash, do 3 or 4 of them. That's it. You've hit all the athleticism movements, you're warmed up, primed up, ready to go. Now I'm getting some speed training in there, legit, real speed training. I'm putting a clock on them for 10 yards. And they know every time I'm going to come and I got to beat a 1.94. Like they're going to know their times. And then day 2, you come and you time a 10-yard fly, or you play that tag game. I think what you've got set up already is probably pretty close to something I would be doing to fit this into practice. Add in the timing. You know what I'm saying? And then boom, you're rolling.
We've talked about the 10-yard sprints, the 10-yard flies. What's something maybe they could do in their backyard? Is there anything that we haven't covered that maybe players could do or parents could do with their kids at home? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe a 15-minute max routine that they could do to help increase their speed.
For sure. So I would say we haven't really covered the elasticity part. So ultimately, your body, your brain, it knows how much force it can absorb. And that is only the amount of force it will produce. Does that make sense? So if my brain knows that I can only absorb X amount of my body weight, when I go to sprint or accelerate, that's the amount of force that I'm maximally going to be able to produce. So when we talk about elasticity, we need our brain to be trained that it can handle more forces. And one of the ways that we can do that is there's a lot of like elastic jumping type exercise. It's real quick. Anything where your feet are going on and off the ground, bum, 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 bum. And you always want pop, 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 pop. You could even Google like elasticity exercises or elasticity jumps. That's one thing we haven't talked about, along with like plyometrics, which is similar, goes along same kind of lines. That's more of the strength part of it. So I can get a full strength workout in, full strength program, not using one single weight. And it would be effective for getting stronger in the ways I need to be stronger. I mean, your 13-year-old baseball player who also plays basketball is lifting weights and squatting and deadlifting and all of that going to be beneficial for them? Sure, but only to a certain point. They have to reach a certain foundation first. And we can reach that foundation with no weights. And the way that looks is perfect movement patterns. So I want squat patterns, squat single leg and bilateral, which is 2 legs. I want squat patterns to be perfect. I want single leg patterns to be perfect. I want a hinge pattern to be perfect with no weights. And then when I land, I have to absorb that force. And that's where the strength is coming in. So really what that could look like at home, to simplify a little bit, 2-day a week split. You could do it 4, but I know the time constraint. I mean, I've got a kid that's 6 and we only play soccer, and we go to church, play soccer, and we're maxed out. So 2 days, day 1 is an acceleration day. And so you're going to have like a dynamic warm up where you're going to be training the rhythm and the timing and the coordination. That's going to also have some speed drills in there, probably about 15 minutes. You could reduce it to whatever you want it to be. It could be 5 minutes, but you want some kind of dynamic movements that are also working on some coordination. Then we're going to work some acceleration work. So that's where you're getting the stopwatch out and you're timing 10-yard dash, 5-yard dash. You can play around with it. You can set your own standards. Up to about 20 yards is where I would draw the line on the acceleration part of it. Some other things you could throw in there is some hill sprints. And when I'm talking about hill sprints, I'm looking at like a 15-degree grade up to about a 40-degree grade, but no more than about 10 yards. And you're trying to go full speed. Probably put a clock on it, time the first one, and then beat it every time. But again, you're only running about 4 or 5 of these, because once we get to the point that our body is having to use different energy sources, we're no longer speed training and we're basically just beating our body up. So anyways, some kind of dynamic exercise, rhythm and coordination, and then you're going into some sprint work. If you've got, so accelerations, and then some jumps. I mean, that can look any way, literally any way. When I say jump, again, though, it's not 1,000 jumps. You want 30 to 60 quality ground contacts. And that's what I'm counting as ground contacts. How many times do my feet hit the ground? And those are big jumps. I'm not talking about the little elasticity stuff that we were talking about earlier. Jumping off of a box, jumping onto a box, a quarter squat jump or a broad jump, 30 to 60 ground contacts, you're good and done. Day 2 would look like a max velocity day. And that's where you're going to go into same thing, that 5, 6, 7 minute dynamic warm up with some coordination, some rhythm drills. Really on the max velocity day, I want rhythm in there with it. So I would rather have more like coordination type drills in with the acceleration day. And then I want like some speed rhythm drills where they're having to kind of be on a certain rhythm, but also at the same time, we're hitting coordination too. And then I'm going into those fly sprints or plus 20. So 30-yard sprints, 60-yard sprints. Again, 4, 5, you're good. And then we come and go with those lower level plyos or jumps, which would look like bounding, some pogo type jump stuff, some more elasticity stuff to just pop that ground and get off the ground quick.
Good stuff right there. You made me think about the Winter Olympics when you mentioned the box jumps. And I don't know if you caught it, but the figure skater, his name Jordan Stoltz. Now, I don't follow figure skating, but this guy just rolled to the gold medal. He just rolled everybody right off the rink in the 500 meter, basically the sprints. Like he was doing the figure skating sprints. And between him winning gold medals and just dominating record-breaking performances against the world, and it showed a home video of him training for the Olympics. And you know what he was doing? Jumping. He was in his parents' basement because he's really young. He was at his parents' basement and he was jumping. And the reason I bring it up is some listeners are thinking, well, I don't have a box. Sometimes those boxes are not cheap. What he was using? He was using a freezer, just one of those garage freezers that's open from the top. He was just jumping on his parents' freezer, and that was a staple. He said was a big part of his training that got him faster and more explosive. So we've talked a lot about the physical part of speed training. Is there a mental component of speed training that youth players could lean into to improve their speed?
Well, so back in the day when I was young and fresh, overcoaching, you cueing every single thing, I was trying to be that mental aspect for them. But one of the things I've always coached, and I still do to this day, is body awareness. They have to be able to understand their posture. And so what I mean by that is everything that we do neurologically or do in a speed training world is neurological, meaning the brain is sending signals to the muscles in a very rapid, quick way and adapting to that stressor. So kids have to be able to develop body awareness and really, we've been talking about it this whole time. It's the coordination. I don't know if you remember, this is a really good example. We used to do a long time ago when I was in high school, we used to do these things called high knee karaoke. This is just a random example that I thought of just now, but it's a good one. So high knee karaoke, we would do the karaoke. If we're moving to the right, we would take a right step, and then we would take the left foot behind, and then we would take another right step, and then we would bring that knee and swing it way over. You know what I'm talking about? We were loosening up our hips, and that's what we did. It wasn't until, it was probably 8 years ago, hit me. What is the purpose of this? That goes back to a lot of this is like purpose. We got to have a purpose in every single thing we do, just like your skill drills with baseball. What's the purpose? So I couldn't find a purpose with this drill, but we were doing it. And then it hit me. You know what? The knee, when I sprint, I need it to go up and back down under the hip. And I had seen some guys that kind of in the speed world that were doing this drill a little bit differently than I'd ever seen before. And what that was they would take their right step, they would take their left foot behind, they would take their right step, and then their left knee would go up and back down in that same spot. Boom. There's so much body awareness that has to happen just with that drill. So when I coach kids on that drill, we walk, step, behind, step, up, down, step, behind, step, up, down. And it's a walk, and I'm walking with them. Okay, now here we go a little bit faster. And I use that example because that's an easy one for me to cue the body awareness of, oh, well, your knee went out this way. Your knee came over this way. Your foot hit back here. I need your knee up and back down. You know what I'm saying? So just having that awareness is really the biggest thing, because if they have the awareness, we can coach the coordination. We can get them there on the coordination, but that's where we can't overcoach. We've got the drill. They need the body awareness, the mental part of it, to say, oh, my knee did go out. How do I fix it the next rep? That's where we're seeing progress. That's how we're seeing kids start to move well. Because speed, it's not just effort. Speed is a skill. So is any the body awareness stuff. It's a skill. They've got to learn. And any skill, you've got to be able to correct. When they can start correcting, the speed as a skill gets better, and then everything else falls in line.
Body awareness, connecting the mind and having the awareness of what the body's doing. Love it. Very underappreciated. Kinesthetic awareness. That's a really interesting answer, and it makes perfect sense. So I got one more question. I know you got to get going, Coach. I know you got somewhere to be, but I appreciate you being on. I have one more question. This relates to off season versus in season. How would a speed training? It's probably not a big difference for like baseball players versus maybe track athletes or really intense speed training. But for youth baseball players or just youth athletes, what would be a difference or two between what you would recommend doing during the off season versus in season?
Yeah, it's a good question, and a very probably misunderstood question a lot of times. That's the thing. There's so many misconceptions out there because we're seeing these these pro athletes doing these things, and they're on a different level. When we look at a youth athlete that's 8 or 10 to 13, 14, 15 even, sometimes 16 and 17. I've got 16 and 17-year-olds that look like some of my 14-year-olds just because of the development. They're all at a different level, but they're way behind those pro and elite athletes. So it looks different. And the answer to your question is it looks very similar. I'm actually in the process right now of writing an in-season program for one of my partners. I'm like, well, how is this any different than my off-season stuff? There's a few tweaks. Really, the big one is number of days that we're training in an off-season program. If I'm going to write an off-season program and it's a true off-season program, I'm going to be probably hitting 4 days a week. And then I'm able to add a little bit more volume. So the volume, the days of the week, but then the stressors that we add in, which again, it's very similar because the youth athlete is so untrained, anything is going to increase their performance pretty much. And they're really not getting beat up that much. I have a philosophy of like, we're fresh. I don't want you leaving a training session feeling beat up. I want you feeling like you can go keep working. Eccentric contraction is really the big difference. I'm going to have a lot more eccentric contraction in my off-season program. And what that means is kids are under load longer. There's 3 types of contractions. There's an eccentric, an isometric, and then a concentric. And so eccentric, we're going slow through the movement. So if, for example, if I'm doing a push-up, I'm going to be in the push-up position and I'm going to lower slowly 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to push back up. They're gaining a ton of strength, but it's a lot harder. It beats their muscles up a little more. So I'm doing a lot of that still in the in-season programs because it's so beneficial, and their kids will get strong so fast with eccentrics. but you can't program it as much in the in season because it creates a lot more soreness. It just kind of tears the muscles up a little bit more. So really that's the biggest difference is in season, I've got less days, little less volume, but pretty much the same stuff. Off season, I've got a little more eccentric type movements in there and an extra day or two, but about the same stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Similar stuff, just not beating up the athlete as much in season.
As much.
Love it. I'll tell you what, this was some good stuff, Coach. I really appreciate you coming on. How can the listeners get in touch with you or find you? Is there any way they can get in touch with you?
Yeah. Hey, like I told you at the beginning, I've been training in person for a long time. About the last year or so, we started branching out and we're a fully remote organization called Speed Training Co. And we partner with youth organizations, leagues, travel teams. We like to be their speed and strength and conditioning department and give them that resource. You can Google Speed Training Co. We're on Facebook, Speed Training Co. My email is dexter@speedtrainingco.com. We've got a website, speedtrainingco.com. Really, any of those, I think it's possible you could link some of that in the notes there. But yeah, reach out if you've got questions on any of this. I can through some resources. I'm glad to help. I love our mission is really to kind of change the game of youth sports. And the way that I want to do that is through coaches, because the way I've seen it is coaches are uneducated on especially the speed and strength side of the game. And they're so crucial, those areas. And like I said earlier, if you don't have the right philosophy, you don't know what you don't know, and you're going to be beating the kids up on accident. And then you're going to be sitting there scratching your head wondering, why am I not seeing the results? I ask anybody, go ahead and reach out. Well, I'd love to hear from you.
I think outsourcing the speed component for leagues and organizations, travel outfits, high school programs, outsourcing that is actually a really great option right now.
And the way we actually do it is really beneficial for the leagues and the partners that we have. We actually have a revenue share model. Like one of our partners right now, I think they've got 20 regions that they serve, and each region has 8 to 10 teams. We're their strength conditioning department, basically. But each region, every kid that signs up with us, their region gets a portion of that money back into their region. It works out really well for us, works out really well for the leagues, for the partners that we have too.
Sounds like a great system. Definitely recommend coaches. All our players need to get faster. Every single one probably needs to get faster. You got a great resource here with Coach Pendergraft. Dexter, this was so much good info you shared with the listeners. And I love that our mission is aligned. The more I'm listening to you, the more our missions are clearly aligned. Thank you. This was a great discussion.
Yeah. Hey, I know we didn't get to every one of them. Let's do it again if we need to in a couple months. Love to.
That would be awesome. Thanks for coming on.
All right. I appreciate you very much.
Well, that's going to wrap up our interview with Coach Pendergraft. Dexter bringing some great wisdom, sharing that out here on the 80/20 Baseball Podcast. Awesome to have him on. Got some other awesome interviews lined up. Next week, though, will be a solo episode. We're diving into what I think is a very interesting topic, and I have the top 5 coaching posts of the month to share with you. In the meantime, head over to the App Store. If you got an iPhone, Pitcher Score, the new app that I built. Use it to gamify accuracy for all your pitchers. 8020baseball.com has a lot more stuff. Got the coaching plan over there. That said, until next week, keep taking care of your health. Let's keep taking care of our health so we can be at our best for our families, our close friends, our teams, our players. And let's take this information, these speed training tips that we got today. Let's go put them in action. How about a game of tag? How about timing some sprints? All right, coaches, take it out to the field. Y'all take care. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80/20 Baseball Podcast, the 80/20 Baseball Masterclass. We got this. Now, let's take the field.